critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not.
Hi, welcome along to Steve Wraith's True Crime Podcast. I'm joined by Michelle today. How are you, Michelle?
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you for coming along. And the reason I've got Michelle here is because of something I found online. It was a few months ago now, and it was carried into the newspaper. And this was about the mum of Reggie Kray's adopted son had died. And of course, that's somebody who I got to know quite well in the very early 90s, Kim Lane and Brad Lane, a son who was adopted because Reg Kray couldn't actually formally and legally adopt Brad. He was named as the adopted son by the media. And this particular story didn't really strike me as anything special. I knew Brad had passed away a few years earlier. But I knew that Kim potentially was still alive, but I had no reason to speak to her. I hadn't spoken to her since 1992. She wasn't very happy that I'd built up my own relationship with the Kray twins and started visiting them and doing business with them without her help. I'm going to give my opinion of Kim first of all, and that was only from the 4 meetings that I actually had with her. I always found her a rather bitter and twisted woman, quite jealous of anyone being friendly with the Krays without her involvement. On visits, she was very negative and always looking to cause an argument, especially visits to Reg. With Ron, she just seemed to be full of self-satisfaction and smugness. She treated Brad, badly. There wasn't really any motherly love for me when I was down there. If she wasn't shouting at him, she was just letting him get away with what he wanted to do. And I've got to be honest, I didn't really know them that well, but my impression was that, Brad was playing his mum, if you like. I mean, I'm a parent myself. I've got two kids, and, discipline's an important thing. You have to make sure they know right from wrong. You have to make sure that, they realize the value of money. And from my perspective, I just felt that Brad, how can I describe him? Maybe to me anyway, as an outsider, was a bit of a spoiled brat, and she seemed to let him get away with stuff. But ultimately, the story you're about to hear today from Michelle will give you probably the reasons behind Kim and my views on Kim and my feelings about Brad. There was a lot going on behind closed doors, which I was completely unaware of. But ultimately, Michelle was slap bang in the middle of it. So, Michelle, thank you for reaching out, because when that story broke in the newspapers, it was big news because Reg was attached to it. So, tell us a little bit about your upbringing first. Where were you born, and where did you used to live?
So I was born in Nottingham, but we moved up to Doncaster at 6 months old. My mum lived down Broadway, but then later had a council exchange on the top of the Crescent, which is 7 doors away. We lived at the top of the Crescent, 7 doors away, going round the corner. Kim lived there with Bradley.
And this is in Dunscroft in Doncaster, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. So literally just around the corner. I used to play around there, around the Crescent all the time, from being very young. So that's where I met Kim and Bradley. Now, I met Bradley when he was 1, when they first moved from Scarborough down to Dunscroft. She had a sister-in-law, so to speak. It was like a bit mixed family, but it was classed as a sister-in-law, Sandra, and she was there. Never met her before then, but I was playing at Sandra's house, and Sandra was shouting at me because I was playing, and one of the girlfriends pushed me off the back of the wall, and later on I'm itching my head, and there's a couple of headlights in my hair. And we'd been in Sandra's house, and I was like 10, 11 at the time, saying, God, you've got a dirty house, I've got woodlice in my hair. So Sandra, she took obviously, and she come and she's there screaming, shouting. And Kim came out with Bradley in the pushchair, and she said, I won't take no notice of her, come on, let's walk on, let's go up to my house, which I did. Now, I didn't know where she lived, but as we walked up, she says, I live here, do you want to come in? I went in. And she was lovely. She was really, really nice. she offered me to come round for tea the next day, which I did. Never forget, we had turnip and it was in squares. My mum always used to mash the turnip, but she'd done it in squares, which I thought were a bit bizarre, but it was lovely. And she really treated me well. Asked me if I wanted cigarettes, which I did. I was smoking at that age.
And how old were you then?
About 10, 11. I was around about 1978. Bradley's birthday was on the 13th of December. He would have been 2. It was the summer holidays of 1978. Because I do remember Bradley having his birthday and blowing his candles out and everything at 2. So I just kept going around there, and she kept inviting me around there. And it was good. You know, she was treating me like an adult. I wasn't getting much attention at home. I come from a family of 5 children.
Right.
With a stepdad. My mum and my stepdad had that one child between them. Kind of got my nose pushed out a little bit. Never really, my mum and dad weren't that bothered about me. My stepdad weren't that bothered about me. More so the younger son and the eldest brother. Anyway, so we're getting attention there. Kim had a sister called Gloria, who's still alive now. And she literally brought Kim up. Gloria was quite old and Kim was quite young when the mother had them. So her mum died and Gloria brought Kim up from being young. And we used to walk over to Stainforth, which was about 3 or 4 miles away, to Gloria's house quite often. And then one day I was in the house and she said she was going over to Gloria's with Bradley in the pushchair. And she got them all strapped in. And she had one of those old range fires with the oven at the side of it. And she says, "Oh, would you mind stopping here and making the fire for when I get back?" And I said, No, not at all. And then all of a sudden I felt like a breathing on the back of my neck. And she was kissing the back of my neck. And of course, what the hell's going on? I didn't know what was going on. And then she said, "I can't leave you." And I said, what do you mean you can't leave me? Thinking that she didn't trust me to be in the house.
Yeah.
She said, "I can't leave you, I can't leave you." Anyway, she didn't. She got hold of my hand and took me upstairs. There, she performed oral sex on me. When she'd finished doing what she was doing, I just laid there, didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Just didn't know. But Bradley was asleep in his pushchair downstairs at the time. Now, I did go back. Actually, after she'd done that, what she actually said to me was, the words were, "Actually, I feel a little bit better now because you've got a few hairs down there."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
I know. Anyway, so I was nervous. I didn't know what to do, what to say, or anything. Now, one of the reasons I did go back is you've just said yourself, she wasn't very maternal.
No.
I was there on numerous occasions when she beat Brad, and as I said, he was 2 at that time. He had a toy room at the top of the stairs. I remember him playing in the toy room, leaving his toys out. She pulled him upstairs by the hair and pushed him back down the stairs after he wouldn't clean up. At that time, he wasn't spoiled. He weren't a brat. He was, in my opinion, harshly done by.
Yeah. And
I felt that I had to protect Brad, although I weren't much older. She told me I was a babysitter. She did. She got me a tobacco tin, printed my name in it, rolled my cigarettes, gave me cherry brandy. This abuse went on for 3 years. Until I was in the high school. She forced me to do things what I didn't want to do to her until I was sick, crying and everything. When I went to the high school, a friend of mine, she was trying sexual things with girls, boys, and somebody called her a lesbian across the playground, and I thought they were talking to me. And that's when I realised, and I thought, this isn't right, this is wrong, it's all wrong. Well, you kind of know that it's wrong, but you're not out for it neither. It's a bit weird because it's a big secret.
Yeah.
Now, it's not, for me, it's not particularly the sexual side of it. That I might be able to get over, apart from when I thought that she was calling me a lesbian, because I'm certainly not a lesbian. Never have been, never will be. I've got a big thing about lesbians, actually, but that's because of this.
Yeah.
the person that shouted was actually talking to my friend, and I said to my friend, I think she's calling me a lesbian. She went, no, she's calling me. And that's when it stopped. But Kim used to come up with Bradley and went outside the school, and I used to go the other way. She'd said that she come from a travelling background, which the Prices on their side were partially travellers. Now, she used to threaten my family with she's going to bring the travellers around, set the house on fire, went round to my mum's a few times when I'd stopped going round there, threw all my things at my mum and said what they weren't going to do, we're going to set the house on fire, they're going to come and kick everybody's head in, they're going to do this and all of that. Anyway, so that was that. I stopped going. My boyfriend later went round there after I told him. He went round to her house with a machete. He took Bradley, put Bradley on his shoulders and walked down the street.
How old was Bradley then?
That was probably, I was about 15 at that time.
So he'd be about 4 or 5.
Yeah, he would have been, yeah. He took Bradley and the police were called and he was arrested. But he knew what had happened and that's why he took Bradley out of the house. Anyway, that stopped. My mum kicked me out at 16-year-old and I went to live into Doncaster, where my life was quite a fast life. It was a town. Doncaster was like a slow village, a bit rough, but in Doncaster it was a different life altogether when I was living with my boyfriend, where subsequently I got pregnant at 16. Sex didn't matter to me. It was just one of those things, it happened, and it didn't matter if it was like an abusive relationship, which it was. But I moved on from then. You kind of forget the abuse. You try to put it to the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And then when I was settled with my husband, who I'm with now, I couldn't keep it a secret any longer. And I told him, and I said to him, I need to go to the police. Which I did. That was about 15 years ago.
Okay, wow. So, I mean, that's a hell of a long time.
Yeah. Well, there was another victim involved.
Which you can't name.
He's nameless. But he is, it's male, and I do know who he is, and I did know who he was. And he was involved in it. Now, when I went to the police, it was definitely going to court. Val Sinclair, the officer in charge, told me numerous occasions it was going to court. I've got a good case, I've got good evidence, and there were going to be quite a few charges against her, albeit none of them could be rape because a woman can't rape a woman or a girl.
Is that right? Is that in law?
Yes.
Wow.
Because
I didn't know that.
You have to have a penis to rape.
Right, okay.
So, even though digital penetration, but not rape. So, anyway, plus with it being historic, it was. There's different laws now where historic doesn't carry as much sentencing as what it does now. There's different laws. I think they come out probably 1990s or something, maybe even 2000s. Anyway, so yes, it was going to court. Now they went to see the other victim, because we are victims, we're not survivors.
You're victims, of course you are.
And he wouldn't give evidence. Now I got everybody to ring him. At this point, I wasn't talking to him. I've not spoken to him for now over 20 years. Still not spoken to him. And he said, it happened. It really did happen. He said, but I'm not prepared to go to court, and I'm not prepared to give a statement neither. So that upset me a lot. Anyway, in the end, the CPS came to me, they wanted a meeting and said, actually, there's nothing we can do. It's not going to go to court. It's your word against hers, and that's that. I've met you today to put over things. It was about 2 hours long, this meeting with the CPS, and all he did was talk about himself. There was no way I was ever going to change his mind on anything. So that was that. So then sometime later, I was watching Crime Watch, and it was probably about 6-7 years later, and it said, if you've been abused in the past, come to us. From BBC, do this, do that. So I thought, my initial thoughts, and what I did write to them was, what a load of bollocks. People come to you and you don't do anything about it. I got a phone call a couple of days later, said, well, actually, we will do something about it. Can you tell us a little bit of your story? So I did. Then I got a phone call, said, can you get in touch with Ian Harding? He used to work for Psychiatric Police, and he actually works for National Child Abuse Review Panel.
Yeah.
He looked at it for quite a while, for a few years, probably about up to 2 years, and I had nothing back from him. And then I got an email back saying, like, what's happened is we've looked at it inside out, upside down, turned it around, and the police have taken it back. So now, Kath Coulter, Kath Coulter is looking at your case. Now, Kath I cannot say a bad thing about Kath Coulter. She's been fantastic and still is. You know, even after January 17th, it was supposedly the last court trial. She's been fantastic even up until not yesterday, the day before when I emailed her, and she will be there all the time. Anyway, so she's looked at the case and she's re-interviewed Kray, and she also interviewed the other victim, and he said that he would appear in court. He come forward. So we ended up with 10 charges for himself and 6 charges for him. So what happened then, we got a court date. It was Magistrates Court to start off with, and that was on the 10th of January 2019, Doncaster. Now, I could have gone to court, but I never did. And it's deemed wrong for me to go to court, because in case I hear something that I might get used against me later at the trial. So I didn't go, but a friend of mine went. And I also have an ISVA, which works for DRASAX, which is Doncaster Rape and Sexual Advice. So she goes to court. Now Kray didn't turn up. She didn't turn up, and then they put a warrant out for her arrest, and she wasn't found. But then I heard from Kim's niece that she'd taken an overdose and she was in Rotherham General Hospital. And she had taken an overdose, and it was touch and go whether she was going to stay alive or die. Anyway, the police couldn't have anything to do with it whatsoever. Then they had to drop it for the time being. And then she got better, and she come out, and we got a court date. She appeared in Magistrates Court, and then she appeared in Sheffield Crown Court. Sheffield Crown Court, she pleaded not guilty.
Yeah.
Now that was that. So she was able to plead. But then after that, she started going down the mental health road, saying that she's got mental health, she'd lost her son, this is all causing her trouble. And this is where she brought the Krays into it, because she said and the other victim was actually after the memorabilia or the proceeds from what she'd sold at Sotheby's. We wanted money. Now, that is an absolutely ridiculous suggestion, because the court, the prosecution, the defence all know myself and the other victim would never have ever got any proceeds from her. Not a penny would have ever come from her for any crime whatsoever. So I really don't get my head around why they were even going to use that as defence.
Yeah.
The mental health side I could see, but every single one of the court people, the police, ISVAs, knew she was playing the game. So eventually we got this date for court, which was
7th of August.
7th of August. We'd already had one which got adjourned to 7th of August. So this one on the 7th of August, which was 2020, nothing to do with COVID, what some people might say it was, but it was nothing to do with COVID. It was all down to her and playing the game with the mental health. Now, she didn't turn up then. It was actually heard probably about the 4th of August in court without my knowing, and she was sent to Bristol to be mentally assessed and sectioned. So she got sectioned, and 2 days later she got let out because she was deemed fit for court and no mental health whatsoever. So, but even at that, she still carried on playing the game. So after the 7th of August, I actually wrote to the judge and said, can you please do this sooner rather than later? It's doing me no good with my mental health, which is that letter there.
So this letter says, Dear Judge, Your Honour, I am writing to you with the intention to put across the massive impact the prolonging of this case by the defendant is having on myself and family. She, the defendant, has and is trying everything to avoid this case and even appearing before you. I myself have suffered with my mental health for over 40 years, of which has been made worse over the last 13 years since I disclosed to the police. In that time, I've suffered knockback after knockback with the case moving forward for me to finally get closure. I appreciate the more recent delays due to the current problems we're all suffering with COVID, but now we are finally moving on in the right direction. I would really be grateful for a court date much sooner rather than later, just to maintain my own sanity. And then you've signed it. So
yeah, so that was then. I don't even think the letter was acknowledged. It was shown in court, but I don't think it was acknowledged. Then we got a court date for the 17th of January. Now, I went to see my ABE, which is Achieving Best Evidence, the day before, which was the 16th of January, where I watched my DVD. I spoke to DS Kathleen Coulter afterwards, and I said to her, she won't turn up. And Kath said, don't worry about it, Michelle, we'll kick her door down. So I said, no, she really won't turn up, she'll be dead. So Kath kind of like shrugged her shoulders and she said, well, we'll see. Anyway, so the 17th of January, I wasn't due to appear until the 18th of January to give my evidence, but a friend of mine went, and just a friend of mine went, Phil was actually away with COVID. So, and DS Coulter went as well to the court. Now, Kim Lane was supposed to be there at 9:15. Now, they gave it till 9:45 at the latest to see her solicitor before she went in, the barrister, whoever. Now, she still didn't turn up. The hearing was due to start at 10 to 11 that morning, and she didn't turn up. Now, my friend went in the court, and in the court, her barrister suggested, because she hadn't turned up, and she did have a mediator, she asked for an appropriate adult to be with her due to her health, mental health, which she hadn't got, but she still asked for this, and she was allowed this. So she didn't turn up. Her barrister asked for an adjournment to October, which was denied. Then the judge said, look, just give her a little bit of time, go to her house and arrest her, so we'll have her back here. Her barrister actually said that she's travelling on public transport from Doncaster, which was a lie. She wasn't. She was travelling on public transport from Rotherham. Now, Rotherham is the next village to Sheffield, so it wouldn't have taken her that long anyway. So she didn't turn up. The police went down there. She left her door ajar for somebody to find her, and she was unconscious on the floor, having taken her ibuprofen and paracetamol. Now, they got her to General Hospital again in Rotherham, and at 3:00 that day, she had a cardiac arrest and died. So everybody's kind of, this is great, it's great news, it's brilliant, but no, it's actually not. There's no closure there whatsoever. There's no justice, there's no closure. There's no finality for me. Do you know, it's not good that she's dead. I wanted her to do prison. She was looking at 20 to 25 years in prison. So anyway, that was it. She was dead. And there was a court hearing the next day. I was invited to the court, and there was my friend that had come up from Plymouth that was a witness, and a friend that had been there all the time. There was 3 public gallery seats, of which the 3 of us sat. The policewoman, Kathleen Coulter, was round the other side of a mirrored partition where I couldn't see her. There was her barrister, my barrister, the judge, and a reporter. And that was it, and an usher. Now, the judge said to my barrister, are you quite satisfied that this is the deceased? Has there been anybody formally identify her? Which was negative, but it was positive that she was satisfied that it was the deceased. He asked her barrister the same question, she was satisfied, and he just said, court closed. Now, he knew that I was sat in there. He didn't even look at me, nor did the barrister mention that I was in there, albeit she knew that I was in there at that day. And when I come out of there, my friend actually started screaming, shouting, what about justice for my friend, in the court? Still nothing was said until we got outside, and my barrister actually looked at me, shrugged her shoulders a little bit, and she said, well, what do you want to, if you want to go over there, find a place to sit, I'll come and see if I can have a word with you after I've done another trial.
Wow.
So I didn't even acknowledge that whatsoever. I just walked up with the policewoman and my friends. We went into another room. I'm quite a polite person. Normally I would have thanked her, bought her a bunch of flowers, whatever, you know, for doing just a job.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even bring myself to say thank you or anything. She didn't. I was just another number, or not even another number. I was just another job. Anyway, so I thought, I'm not having this. I'm taking it further, which I did. I had meetings with barristers, my barrister, should I say. She literally lied in the meeting. She said that she invited me to come over and speak to her, which my friend were there, policeman were there. I said that you're a liar. You know, I did call her a liar. She said to my friend, I let you know on the Monday exactly what was going on. My friend said, you actually didn't. Why would you? I was just a public gallery person. She said, I was nothing to you. Why would you even do that? I've had letters back from them just clarifying what was said in the meeting, which was, I didn't get any further forward. Been in touch with the police commissioner and had a meeting with him. He was horrified at, you know, the situation, the outcome. I asked for a meeting with the head of the judges. I was declined on 3 occasions. I've also had a meeting with my local MP, Nick Fletcher. He was horrified, but then he got his solicitor, and his solicitor said, well, actually, she's got nothing to do with me. Her barrister's got nothing to do with me. My barrister wasn't my barrister. It was the Crown prosecution, and it was the Queen, for the Queen. They was working for the Queen, not for me. So I didn't get any further forward from that. So I did go to the paper, and I put in the paper. I'm quite willingly giving my name, and just to say it wasn't me that involved the Krays in the matter. It was her.
Did it upset you a little bit that they took the Kray story as the main story rather than what had happened to you, or do you think that probably got wider public attention?
It did get wider public attention, and I was quite happy with that, and I was in agreement with that. But she brought the Krays into it. You know, I had nothing whatsoever to do with the Krays. But what it also has done for me is just made her look even worse. You know, potentially taking her son 600 miles down the road to see the Krays. What sort of a mother would do that and let her son be adopted by the Krays? Bradley never had a dad anyway. He was badly treated, ill-treated. As Steve said, it's probably, you know, he saw him as a spoiled little brat. Probably because she never had the maternal instinct for Brad. You know, he was never loved. He was, his dad was a cousin from Scarborough, who she never ended up with. There were men in and out of that house all the time afterwards. She was actually sleeping with Brad, which that is fact that she was sleeping with Brad. He shared the same bed up with her many, many occasions when I was there and afterwards. I know his girlfriend quite well. And he was still sleeping with his mum at 19-year-old. Brad became an alcoholic and then later died. He had troubles. He's told my son, my son knew him very well. The girl kind of going to the same school and everything, and later on they kind of knocked about together a little bit. And he told my son he had massive problems with his mum, which I don't know. My son's never actually told me that. He's just said he's had massive problems with him. You know, so I think where Brad was concerned, you know, yeah, he might have been a bit wayward, but he had reasons to be so. Because
he was abused himself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a tragic story, and I mean, I've just shown some of the photographs there. I mean, you know, the one of Reg and Brad in prison is quite a well-known one. And Kim really did push this narrative. She was in control of it. She was the mother of the son. I shared visits with these people, and ultimately pushing them into other criminals as well. I mean, Buster Edwards from the great train robbery down at his flower stall, just making a big thing of ultimately his young, being naive. She was just putting them in with these criminals, wasn't she? And I've got to be honest, he the first day that I went down and met them, he was excited. He was just like every young boy. He was pleased that I'd gone down. But the initial contact wasn't with Brad. It was with Kim. She wrote to me, I wrote to her. There was a pen pal relationship which had built up through me meeting, me speaking to Reg and writing to Reg. And then the initial invite down to that house in Dunscroft, was, for me, I was down on holiday with one of my mates in Scunthorpe, went across to see them at her invite, and met Brad, and they had a little staffy, I think, I can't remember the name of the dog, they had a little staffy dog. And I just remember going down, and there was like a shrine to the Krays in this bedroom, and Brad was showing us around. Have you seen these? Have you seen that? And he had the wedding photographs. They had Francis's engagement ring from the wedding back in the 60s. And for me, as a fan, which I was of the Krays at the time, it was like going into an Aladdin's cave, a Kray memorabilia, and I was fascinated. And I do remember going the second time, and she had laid some fairly provocative underwear out on the bed. Now, she told me to go on, Brad's upstairs, go and see Brad when I come down to the house. We were going on a visit on this particular day. And Kim had left this, this underwear out on the bed and a door open. And that gave me quite an unnerving feeling, because I was still quite young at the time. Certainly wasn't interested in someone, like her age and the way she looked as well. And there's not many photos of that. I am going to put this one up, and I apologise if this gives you the creeps, is probably the best way to describe it. But that is me and Kim at Broadmoor in 1991. And that was one of those 4 visits that I had with her before we ultimately went our separate ways, because she was jealous of my, relationship with the Krays growing and building on the first meetings by doing T-shirts. But I always felt, and this is something I'd said to you when we first spoke, that she looks like Myra Hindley. She had that look. She had the peroxide blonde hair. She had these, mean-looking eyes, and just a demeanour. She could be awful. She could be spiteful. She caused hell on visits and in visiting rooms, that with Reg for no reason at all at times. And that was just, as a 19-year-old boy, as I was at the time, and a 20-year-old boy, that was the feeling I got about, that there was something underlying that wasn't right. And when this came out, and this story came out, and I read it online for the first time, I've got to be honest, I wasn't surprised at all. Yeah. I think my biggest disappointment, Michelle, is that I didn't speak to Brad. I'd moved out of the house, my dad's house, Mum and Dad's house, long time ago. And it was one of those things. Brad had rang us 4 weeks before he died. And I'll never know why now. I'd lost contact with him. I had no reason to keep in touch with a 13-year-old boy. But he had rang my house number, which he must have got from somewhere, I don't know where, and asked if I was in, and he said it's Brad Lane. But my dad didn't pass the message on until Brad had died, because I didn't see my dad on a regular basis over that period of time. And I'll never know why I rang. But tragic story. I mean, I guess what I get out of this, Michelle, is that not just your case, but all cases, there doesn't seem to be any help whatsoever from the system for the victims.
What you do, you go to the police. If they believe you, they'll take it on. If they don't believe you and there's not evidence there, then they're not going to take it on. Obviously, like 15 years ago when I went to the police, they did believe me and it was taken on. I remember the policewoman, Val Sinclair at the time, saying to me, she knocked on an address in Bentley where Kim moved to from Dunscroft with Brad and with Gloria and her sister. And she says, and when she opened the door, she went, yes, because she just knew as soon as she saw her, yes, that is that. She's got that look about her, as you just said, it wasn't a good look. Everybody that he spoke to in Dunscroft, they all knew that she was, well, they'll say, oh God, she was psycho, and yes, she was. But anyway, so the help that you get is if they believe you and you do actually get it where it's going to be taken to court through CPS. Now, CPS, you're just another number to them, and the barristers. When I had this meeting with the barrister, my friend said to her, "Did you have passion in your belly? Did you have fire in your belly?" And she went, "No." She said, "No, I didn't. She was just another job." Now, really, they should have picked it up because of a female, being with a female. They should have really picked that one up and it would have been a big story for the cause. But the help that you get, like I said, Kath Coulter has been fantastic. Sarah Phillipson from Dressax has been absolutely fantastic. I've had counselling all my adult life, and I've been on antidepressants all my adult life. I'm diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, PTSD, and dyspermia. Dyspermia is, not many people have heard of this, but it's a double clinical depression. I'm up and down all the time because of what's happened. And I don't think I'll ever lose that. I think I'll always be like that.
Yeah.
But the help is the counselling. Now, the counselling for me is not so great. EMDR, which I'm having at the moment, is better and it's working.
And what does that stand for?
I don't actually
know.
know.
Right, okay.
No, I don't actually. It's something to do with one side of your brain holds things where it gets passed over to the other side of the brain and it's not quite as potent as what it might have been.
Right.
Now, they don't actually do this before court because it can come where, like the court might be asking you questions saying, "How did this work for you?" And you go, "No, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter." Because it actually makes it like that where it doesn't really matter anymore. Now, like I said, the sexual part of the abuse doesn't really matter to me anymore because I've had this EMDR. I am able and I can talk about it now to anybody really. I don't want people to feel sorry for me or anything. I want this story to be heard because the justice system absolutely stinks afterwards. It's afterwards. There's nothing there for you. There's nothing there for anybody. Or, like I said, it was a brush off in the court the next day that got me more than anything. Not even, it weren't them that did it, but not even, I'm sorry that this has happened, or we acknowledge that you've come today. There was nothing, and I just think I don't want anybody else to suffer this. There's no closure. I may get a little bit of closure when I go to the inquest, which I have been invited to. It's public anyway, but I may get a little bit of closure then. But I've had no closure whatsoever. And there never will be. So therefore, you talk to abused people and they'll call themselves survivors. No, I've not survived this. I'm still that victim because ultimately, even when she killed herself, she's still in control. It's the grooming side that's in control. She knew that I wanted to protect Dudley all the time. She knew that. She made the abuse into a relationship as if I was having a relationship with her. I remember after it finished, it wasn't maybe 2 or 3 months later, she just said, "Can I just come and get some bits and pieces what I'd left?" I went down to her house and she fully decorated the house. It was as if I was a partner to her, and she said to me, "Now that you've been, I've got to redecorate now. You've come in again, and now just to get rid of you out of my mind, I've got to redecorate." And she was very, very weird. It was just like a 10-year-old in a relationship with a woman, and that was the bizarre part about it. And even that I can't get out of my mind now. Like for her to think, and potentially that's what the abuser puts onto you, as if it's a relationship. Now, therefore, that's why the lesbian side of things bothers me a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that totally, and it's in her mind. She was clearly just trying to justify the crime that you committed.
Yeah.
And try to give herself some kind of mental, mental stability, mental peace for abusing you for so long, which is disgusting. And she should have faced justice. I think that's the worst part about it.
It is the worst part because, like I said, there's no closure. I'm never ever going to have an ending to this. I don't even know. I asked where she was going to be buried, but she wasn't. She was going to be cremated. I wanted to know where she was going to be buried so I could go and spit on a grave. Just do something. Just for my own closure, satisfaction or something. But there's just nothing.
Have you had? Has that other family? And you mentioned a sister earlier. Have you seen these people? Have they spoken to you? Are they aware of the situation? clearly they are now because it's been in the media. But.
Well, I will say her niece actually gave evidence against her. Her niece used to go around and she's probably about 6 months older, a year older than Bradley, and she used to always be around there, Tanya. Now, she gave evidence against her, and I was in touch with Tanya quite a lot, and I used to let Tanya know to let Gloria know when it was at court.
Yeah.
Gloria said she's not surprised. Tanya's dad said he's not, everybody in the family said they're not surprised apart from people down in Scarborough. Now, I did get into contact with people down in Scarborough. I wanted people to know what she'd done. And I wanted her family to know what she'd done.
Yeah.
Now, one of her family, and I will say, is King Arthur Tattooist in Scarborough. And he's got his daughter, and I actually messaged his daughter on Messenger and said, I'm glad she's dead. This is what she did to me. You know, she's dead because she can't face the consequences. And she certainly takes back saying, stop getting hold of my family. You're a liar. You know what? You've done this and all that sort of thing. And I thought, my God, how could people even believe that she's not done it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you could talk to most people in Dunscroft, and after I'd been there, she had young girls, young boys around there all the time. She had men going around there all the time. You know, she was a sex maniac, I'd say, a pervert, a paedophile, and a sex maniac. You know, and she didn't have mental health problems in as much as like mental health problems where she was depressed, or it was mental health problems where she was a nutjob.
Yeah.
You know, that's what mental health problems she had. So that bothered me a lot about her family, and it was a family down in Scarborough that had actually taken the lashes, I do believe. And Tanya afterwards actually phoned Kath Coulter and she said, will you ask Michelle to stop bothering my family, which pissed me off, to be fair, because Tanya would always want to be there. Now for me, that's Tanya being a little bit two-faced, you know, because she wanted to be there, she wanted to acknowledge the court dates and what happens. But then when it was against the other family, she reported me. Now Kath said to me, you know, I don't care, you know, do what you want, but it won't be me that'll have to come and see you. It'd have to be a uniform police, and you'd probably get in trouble for that. So I didn't do it again. But
it's anger, it's frustration, and ultimately you want something which unfortunately you're never going to get now, which is, you know, essentially that justice that your crime that you've suffered deserves, and like closure is something you'll never get. You're right, and this is the sad part about abusers, that they are always in, you know, they always like to be in control. There's a history of abusers, you know, well-known ones like mentioned Myra Hindley and Ian Brady, the ultimate in, you know, sex cases and horrible manipulative bastards who, you know, essentially, you know, killed and murdered children after sexually abusing them. And, you know, from your perspective, you were in the same position. You're lucky to have your life in a lot of ways, but at the same time, you know, you are the one serving a life sentence.
Yeah.
The inquest, what will the inquest bring?
It'll report on what's happened to her previously. Do you know why she did it? What she actually took? If she left any notes, which I don't believe she did. I actually asked Kath. I said, "Has she left any notes?" I just wanted a little note saying, "Yes, I did it," or something. Do you know, just to clarify, "Yes, I have done it."
Yeah.
Do you know, that would have been a little bit better for me. I don't believe there were any, because Kath said she didn't find any, but again, Kath didn't go and investigate it.
Yeah.
I think she just popped in, and then it was other people that investigated the flats where she lived. But even when she did it, she didn't mean to do it. She left the door ajar. She'd done it once before and got saved. And that's what she meant to do. She knew at 10 to 10, the latest that she should have been at court, the police should have been already down there. Now, it was her barrister that prolonged that, delayed that. Now, if her barrister had said, actually, she's not here, can we have the police going down now? They might have found her and she might still be alive, and she would have had to go to court, you know, regardless. I asked for her to be remanded. Kath asked her to be remanded, and the court actually denied that. They said no. I asked her if she is pleading mental health, can she be hospitalised? No. You know, but yet she should have been. She should have been. They knew this is what she'd done. They knew that. Even her own barrister knew she'd kill herself. And this again really, really bothers me, because they knew she was playing the game. So why didn't they just remand her? They would anybody else. Apparently she wasn't a danger, you know, but she was a danger to herself. And as much as I hate to say this, they should have safeguarded her, knowing what she'd done. previously tried to commit suicide. They should have safeguarded her, and they didn't. And I actually think this is where the justice system has failed as well. You know, now I'm glad she's dead. I did that. I made her kill herself, which I'm glad. But I would have still rather her gone to court, got tried, did a trial, got a jail system, whatever, went to jail, and then killed herself. Saved the taxpayer a lot of money, but not previous to court. You know.
We were talking off camera before we started the podcast, and we're talking about the Kray connection, because obviously there is clearly a Kray connection, not something you brought up, but something that Kim brought up, you know, when she was questioned. But you know, do you think the Krays were probably, Reggie in particular, just a bad judge of character? Because this guy, Pete Gillette, who was a former cellmate of Reggie Kray's, is currently at Her Majesty's pleasure now for sex abuse and against his own son, you know, to name but other victims. And that guy put his head above the parapet a few years ago on YouTube, started having a pop at me on Facebook and on social media, saying that I didn't know Reg and this, that and the other. We actually had a little bit of a, you know, an exchange, and then he apologised. But then because he put his head above the parapet, his son then decided to come out and tell everybody what his dad was all about and that he'd sexually abused him. And I just think, when I heard your story and heard what had happened with Kim and Brad, I thought, wow, you know, you know, was Reggie Kray such a bad judge of character? He clearly must have been.
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, he saw, as you said yourself, you saw her on occasions at prison. You saw what she was like. Surely he saw what she was like as well. Yeah, bad judge of character, definitely. She wasn't a nice person. I don't know about the other guy there, you know, what you just showed me. He doesn't look like a nice person, you know, just in his way he looked there. But, yeah, I think the Krays definitely had a good judge of character.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Reggie Kray was, you know, and I've championed the Krays. I think probably I've made money out of the Krays. I've done documentaries. I've visited Reg for 10 years. I visited Ronnie for 5. I knew Charlie for 10 years on the outside. And, you know, the more and more stories that come out about the Krays, the more it turns my stomach. And I've got to be honest now, although Kim's action and behaviour with you doesn't directly involve Reg Kray, and Pete Gillette's actions, you know, out and about, you know, in the living world, don't mean that Reg Kray was involved. But, you know, it tarnishes that image. And the Krays were often, you know, constantly accused online these days of running sex rings in London, etc. And got to be honest, you know, people say to me, do you not think they might have been involved? Do you think they were? And yeah, I you know, I wasn't around in the 60s, what I always say, and that's not a cop out. I wasn't. I was born in the 70s. But, you know, the more I hear about it, the more stories that come out. You know, you just wonder, you know, what on earth Reggie Kray especially was up to. It really does concern me a little bit, because, you know, the kind of offence that, you know, Michelle has been through is horrendous. You know, you still probably haven't had time to take this in now that, you know, that Kim is no longer with us. And obviously the inquest is another part of that. You know, you might get something out of that. But, you know, you started a petition, you know, which again made the newspapers, and you were pushing that petition as well. But, you know, what would you like to see change, Michelle?
Well, the justice system, you know, like I said, I'm not even a number. I wasn't a number to that woman. You know, she just, when I had the meeting afterwards, she admitted, no, it wasn't any fire, you know, you were just another job. She actually said to me afterwards, would it be a little bit better if we were allowed to meet you for 10, 15 minutes, get to know you as a person a little bit? And I said, yeah, absolutely, you know, because I don't know you. You're not, as a victim or from the prosecution side, you're not allowed to meet your barrister. I met her once on over the internet where there was other people. We weren't allowed to talk about the case whatsoever. It was just about, due to the mental health side, what she was doing, what Kim was doing. I needed to know why it was getting pushed back and pushed back. And that's the only time I actually spoke to that barrister, Nicola Quinney, her name was. She's very young, and I think they need to look at abuse cases. She deals with abuse cases, but they don't know the person. They don't know, you know, like the what control the abuser has on the person, what it does to them mentally. You know, they don't know anything about it, and that's what they've got to learn. The justice system has got to learn, and for it to wait, I mean, 15 years is a hell of a long time. You know, for somebody to hold that. Yeah, I'm never ever going to forget it. But 15 years trying to push it and push it. I actually went to a solicitor after they didn't go the first time. Didn't take it to court. I went to a solicitor to try and see if I could take a private prosecution, which I couldn't. But you know, I wanted her outed for what she was.
Yeah.
Do you know, there might have been other children. Do you know, there might have been other people. I have heard in the grapevine that there were other people. They didn't come forward. I definitely heard of another male. I did ask him to come forward, but then the police said to me, this is the first time, you're not allowed to do that because you're kind of doing damaging evidence.
Yeah.
You know, so I just thought, well, what can I do? Just leave it, you know?
Mm.
So, but then when it came out later, yes, I could go to court. The justice system just stinks. All that time, 3 years it's taken from the second time. 3 years. And like I said, it wasn't down to COVID. It was down to paedophiles. And many of them do it, play the mental health card. And they know it. The police and the justice system know it.
Mm.
So they've got to look for that. But they've got to be seen to be having a fair trial. Now, please, you know, come on. Just take a look at that person. She got assessed. She got deemed fit for court. And then they still let her play it. Let her play the mental health card. Yes, she can have an appropriate adult there. And there was one there on the 17th. Why? She was allowed to be having breaks whenever she wanted. She didn't have any mental health. She was deemed to be fit.
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Why did the justice system allow this to happen? Where quite clearly she was playing the game and they knew it.
That's unfortunately Great Britain that we live in now. You can play the system. It doesn't matter whether it's this kind of case or any, you know, you can play the system. And people who know how to play the system, they literally get away with their crimes and misdemeanors, and that's awful. I've got to ask you, if somebody's watching this today, next week, next year, and they have suffered abuse, what would your advice be to them? You know, because you had that mental battle of staying quiet. You know, were fearful. You were protective of Brad. You wanted to try and live your life as best you could. And, you know, you eventually decided to come out. But if somebody is sitting at home now who has gone through a similar kind of abuse that you have and is saying nothing, but is at that point now in their life where they're thinking, I'm going to come forward and say something, what would your advice be to them?
I've thought about this quite a lot. Now, this is I have a bit of conflict with myself with this, because back then, when I was a child and I was getting abused, if I'd have gone to my mum and said to her, I'm being abused, Mum used to tell me to keep away from them anyway, because she did bad things. So I used to sneak down there. Now, if I'd have said to my mum, I'm being abused, I would have got in trouble. I know for a fact that my mother would have said to me, it's your own fault, you shouldn't have gone down there, I've told you not to go down there. Now, when it did come about, the police 15 years ago, the police said, we need to go around and see your parents. And I said, please don't do that. They said, well, we have to. She went round to see my mum, and I said, Mum's not a very nice person. When she went round and she saw me, oh, your mum was lovely. She was ever so upset. She was lovely. I went, really? And she went, yeah, really. Anyway, 2 days later, my mum phoned me, and she said, did this really happen? And I said, what do you mean, did it really happen? And she said, well, the other victim didn't come forward. So because he didn't come forward, are you really telling the whole truth? And I said, I can't believe that you as my mum are actually asking me that question. And then she said, rather nastily, and I'll never ever forget these words, you disgust me. You was brought up to know right from wrong. And I said, Mum, I was a child. And she went, I don't care what you were, you was brought up to know right from wrong. And I thought that just clarifies that if I'd have gone all those years ago and said, these are the words that I would have heard. Don't talk to my parents, don't talk to any of my family. And I've thought about it, and my story is kind of it might make people say, oh, well, if that's happened to her, I won't go to the police. But no, please do. Please go to the police. They will listen. You know, there is people out there, please, that don't listen. And I have got a no justice group on my Facebook. And there's people that have not been listened to by the police, which really infuriates me. But yeah, go to the police and fight your case, because these people should not be walking around, and there's more and more and more of it, especially on the internet. There's rumours, there's these vigilantes that go out there. Now, the police actually said to me, oh, God, in my life, these vigilantes. But to me, no. You know, they're catching these people out and they're doing it and they're getting them to court. So, good. The more they get left to do it, the more they're going to do it. But please, anybody that's been abused or historically abused, go to the police.
And something that just comes to me just by listening to your story is, you know, the gap in time, 10 years or 15 years. Do the police need specific details? I mean, you know and remember the abuse that you suffered, but for instance, you might not remember the date it happened or the date. Has it got to be specifics, Michelle?
No, it doesn't. No.
Right, okay.
So the police have got it here, as you can see, from 1978 to 1980.
Yeah.
I actually left, I actually started high school in 1981. So that was 3 years, and it was still happening in the foundation year at the high school. So it was over a 3-year period. I have corrected that, but they've still got it down as that. No, you don't have to remember the specific dates. You can't possibly. You're a child, you know, on these historic occasions. You are a child. But everybody that's been historically abused will know exactly what has happened to them. You try to push it to the back of your mind. And this is a massive question what people ask all the time, and it bugs me to death. They'll say, why now?
Yeah.
Why have you come forward now? Well, the reason for why now is because I'm settled. I've got children of my own. It's bothered me that much that I can't keep it to the back of my mind anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel justice needed to be done. So that's why now, and I was ready. You've got to be ready. I was ready to talk about it. It was a massive secret. You know, people are under this thing where they think, oh, rumours actually say we're going to kill your parents, we're going to do this. Them words are never really said. It is grooming, and they're not actually said, but you know it deep down that they can do things, and they manipulate you so much so that you know not to tell, and that carries on into your adult life.
Yeah.
Until you realise, well, actually, they've done wrong, not me. I always thought I'd done wrong. My mum even said it, like I just said. She even said I was brought up to know right from wrong. But what you've got to see is that adult and that child, and differentiate yourself.
Yeah, it's crazy. Manipulation was a big part of it, by the sounds of it as well, and that is a horrendous sign of grooming. That photograph I keep showing up, by the way, is actually you and Brad, isn't it?
Yeah. Christmas Day.
Christmas Day 1980. Yeah. What do you think when you look back at that photograph?
My haircut. This is so early. My haircut, yeah. But yeah. Do you know when I first saw that photograph? It was actually Tammy that provided that photograph, Kim's niece. She looked through the photos and said, I found this one here. And that's Brady's 2. It was just 2 on the 13th of December. And so I would have been 12 at that point. And it was, well, 2 days later I would have been 12. The birthday is 27th of December. So I would have been 11 there. And I looked at it and I thought, when I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, it's a child. Do you know?
Yeah.
Even though you remember everything, actually seeing me at that point, it did sicken me.
Yeah, it would sicken.
Quite clearly, a child there.
And how Kim would think that she was in a relationship with a child of that age tells you all you need to know. I do want to thank Kath Coulter, and obviously doing this because Detective Sergeant Kath Coulter 3097 has been involved with Michelle throughout the case. She gave us permission to talk about this openly, so do want to thank her for that permission. And Michelle, I want to thank you for coming on and telling such a graphic story, because you know it can never be easy to talk about these things, you know, especially to a relative stranger. you know, on a podcast. But thank you for approaching us and asking us to do it. Is there anything else you would like to say?
No, just thank you for listening and inviting me today to do this.
Good stuff. Well, I wish you well, Shell. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.